The nature of altruism is changing. In an increasingly connected, medically advanced, and wealth imbalanced world, we can do more good with fewer resources and less effort than ever before. Resources can do precisely the most good when donated to the most socially and physically distant others living in extreme poverty. But using resources to help distant others in severe need often means those same resources can't be used to help closer others in comparatively less need. Strikingly little, however, is known about how people's sense of right and wrong equips them to evaluate such real-world, altruistic trade-offs in social distance for gains in welfare. The extant social psychological literature offers two varied perspectives on this issue that make disparate predictions. On one hand, people evaluate helping others as morally positive and harming others as morally negative. Observing helping is intrinsically rewarding, and people like those who give the most to others in need. On the other hand, however, people empathize more easily with others who are closer and more similar to themselves. They offer more aid to those who are closer and similar to themselves. And finally, emerging research is beginning to show that those who help strangers instead of family members are seen as morally worse. So in the current research, we ask the question, is doing the most good always perceived as morally better? Or is the morality of altruism fundamentally shaped by the social opportunity costs that accompany decisions to help others in need? In Study 1, participants read vignettes adopted from the emerging philosophy and social movement effective altruism, depicting moral dilemmas in which an agent had decided to donate money to a socially distant stranger in severe need, for example, to save the life of a dying child, instead of using that same amount of money to help a socially closer target in lesser need. For example, to make another child who was merely sad, but otherwise healthy, happier. In Study 1, agents always chose to help the more socially distant other, and we manipulated the social distance from the agent of the socially closer other who was denied money with the following levels: a compatriot, a community member, a friend, or a family member. And we measured the perceived moral acceptability of the agent's decision to help the distant other instead of that closer other. What we found here is that as the socially closer entity who was denied money became socially closer to the agent's decision to help the socially distant target instead of the socially close target became systematically less morally acceptable. In Studies 2 and 3, we wanted to investigate whether these negative moral judgments of socially distant altruism translated into tangible social consequences for socially distant altruists. Here, we presented participants with the same types of moral dilemmas as in Study 1, but we manipulated the agent's donation decision, such that the donor decided to help the socially distant cause in some vignettes and the socially closer cause in others. In Study 2, we measured participants' social judgments of donors, asking them to rate how good of a friend, family member, community member, or compatriot the donor was, based on their decision to help either the socially close or socially distant target. We found that donors who helped socially distant targets were seen as worse social partners than donors who helped socially close targets. In Study 3, we measured the proportion of participants who selected socially distant and socially close altruists in an economic game, finding that donors who took their own dying child on vacation, instead of saving the life of a dying child in Africa, were more preferred as partners in this social interaction than those who chose the opposite. Finally, in Study 4, we attempted to address whether social distance or physical distance was driving the effects on moral judgments in Studies 1 through 3. Since socially distant strangers are often more physically distant from donors than socially close others like family members and friends, Studies 1 through 3 did not allow us to assess independent effects of social distance and physical distance on moral judgments of altruism. We presented participants with vignettes describing the same types of moral dilemmas that we had presented in previous studies, holding the agent's decision constant such that he or she decided to donate to a socially distant target instead of a socially closer target in every vignette. Except this time, we added a physical distance independent variable, which we manipulated between subjects. Half of the participants read vignettes in which the socially closer entity who was denied money was nearby to the donor. while the other half read vignettes in which the socially closer entity was located in a distant country. And we found that social distance and physical distance had independent effects on moral judgments. On one hand, people viewed helping directed at socially distant others as systematically less morally acceptable, as the target who was denied money became socially closer to the donor. But most interestingly, people viewed helping directed at socially distant others as more morally acceptable when socially close others who were denied money were depicted as being physically distant from the donor in another country. These findings taken together suggest that doing the most good can be perceived as less moral, that the morality of altruism may be fundamentally shaped by both the social and physical distance between the helper and the person in need. Moreover, these findings raise pragmatic implications for promoting socially distant altruism, suggesting that attempts to decrease social biases in altruism, sometimes advanced in psychology, philosophy, and philanthropy, may have unintended consequences on moral judgments and ultimately social behavior. Finally, future research is needed to better understand how moral boundaries can flexibly contract and expand across social and physical distances. Thank you.